Now, today I have Mars in the third house. So, Mars in the third house, we know Mars to be the planet of action, planet of, you know, take actions. We ask questions later, right? It's basically your motive instincts. Like, how do you move? Do you, think before you move, or do you just take action? Do you take the direct path? Like, you want to do something, you're going to do it. People are going to know that you're doing it, because when you're doing it, it's not that you're just going through the motions. You're actually enjoy doing it. You show energy. That's key too with Mars, right? People see that you have that energy about you. You enjoy doing it. There's a passion that's there. You know, you just know that person can, get some shit done. They have guts. They follow that gut instinct. And now the third house, that has to deal with communication and expression, right? So basically, this person lets their actions speak for them. All right. They don't usually have to talk. They don't have to say a lot, because their actions speak louder than words. That's what this placement means, essentially. So Aries, Mars in the third house. Aries, Mars in the third house, they're definitely like that. So basically, what they're gonna do. They're gonna do and talk later. Essentially, if they feel like they got to do something, that gut instinct, tells them to do something. They ain't gonna ignore it. They're not. They're gonna do it. They don't give a fuck about what you think. That is later. You know, they have to do that. If they don't follow their gut, then like they have no sense of direction. And also, not for all these people, but most of them, if I don't do this right, nobody's gonna do anything. Nothing's gonna happen. I'll take it upon myself. I'll be courageous. I'll do this, and it's like something internal though. This is just who this person is. They're gonna do it when other people aren't gonna do something. They're just gonna take action, not think much about it, just do it. Consequences be damned. We don't give a fuck. We worry about that afterwards, if at all, Um, and that's how these people move. So basically, people around them interpret that as, okay, that's a person who has guts. That's somebody who's courageous. That's somebody who, where other people will think about all the things that'll go wrong, right? This person ain't thinking about that. They just do. And like basically their actions speak louder than words. I'm doing things, and it might not be what you like, but I'm doing things and I'm getting results. So guess what? That speaks for itself too. So what that means is people know this person as a go-getter. They achieve their goals. And, let's say they ain't achieving their goals. You'll also know that they ain't, because maybe somebody's getting in their fucking way and they don't like it, or, somebody just, don't like the way they're moving and wants to like slow them the fuck down. You'll know if that's the case too. But even so, they'll still make shit happen. You know, these people are full of energy and other things. They inspire other people to do things and not just be caught up in the like conversations and whatnot. Um, Basically, this person is definitely the definition of actions speak louder than words. The person who has Mars, Aries in the third house. Now, the next person is Taurus, Mars in the third house. Taurus, Mars in the third house. This person also takes action, but they consider other people a little bit, you know. I don't want to, make shit harder for myself, necessarily. I'm going to plan things out in my head a little bit, and a plan that suits me, right? Not a plan that necessarily, because they like to be helpful too. Because I'm not trying to say these people ain't helpful. Like they actually might give their time to other people longer than they should, is what I'm trying to say. You know, they might give their time to other people too much to the point, because like they have their own goals in mind, right? But they have that patience in them, and they're like, okay, one day that will happen, you know. And they're like, I can do some things for other people right now and like not worry about anything, you know. I don't have to like get my point across, and so I can be quiet and, you know, put my head down and just like do some other shit. You know, I don't want to be seen too much. This person don't care about being seen or getting credit for what they do. They want to achieve their goals and everything else. They definitely do. And they have that, you know, consistency about them. They'll stay consistent, you know, and people see that too. Not everybody sees them though. That's the thing about them. Um, they don't always see them and shit, but the people who do know that they're about their business and shit, you know, and they'll stay consistent. They won't like not show up one day. They'll show up every day essentially, and it's towards like, you know, some greater goal. You know, even if like other people don't get it, they understand. You know, right now things are shitty, but like in the future it won't be. You know, I can let other people, you know, get loud and you know, get their points across. You know, I'll come through at the right time, you know, and they know when the right time is for themselves because they are able to feel out a situation. You know, I've been around these people long enough. They know who I am. They know that I show up consistently. You know, I can now pose questions to them, you know, and I also feel like I can talk to these people. You know, I've done whatever, you know, I've you know, been a good member in the community, or I've, you know, done my job. You know, when people know me, you know, they don't know me as an outgoing person necessarily, that they know I'll do what I have to do. They'll know I take care of, you know, my shit, make sure my shit's all right. Um, and yeah, basically their actions say that, you know, they ain't looking to move through life fast. They know that life's a marathon, so they're gonna, you know, sometimes in their life it sucks, but then they like understand later on it gets better, because like consistency matters. You know, practice makes perfect. You know, these people know about that. Now the next person is somebody um, who thinks a lot. That's Gemini, Mars in the third house. So we know that this person, Gemini energy, is energy that talks a lot. They like to know about what's going on in their area. You know, they like to account for things before they take action, right? And people know that about them. You know, this person ain't just gonna go and do something right away. Also, they ain't gonna like keep to themselves and you know, try to put it all on themselves. They're gonna, you know, look at people, you know, talk to people, figure out, you know, how they could, you know, plan a strategy for themselves, to get themselves right. You know, maybe they also want to help other people out too, you know, because they get ideas and then they have ideas about things, but they also know they have to get people support to support their ideas. And they have the ability to, you know, get people to support them because they always know how to talk and they speak clearly when they talk to people, right? They don't, they definitely think before they do. These people do. They think of a plan and then they execute the plan. And they try to execute the plan, you know, to a T. You know, I'll not fuck with these people. I only do business with these people at these times. Um, I like go to these people for fun. I'll go to these people for like more like real strategy. Like if I need to learn some information, I won't go to those people who fuck around and stuff, right? I'll go to the people who I know like hit the books and, you know, have degrees in these fields and shit. And I'll, you know, make sure I'm getting my information from the right sources and shit, you know, so I don't fuck myself up. You know, they really like think things through, right? And they can like they're still like analytical. Even though they like to talk more than they like to like listen, they still are able to gather information enough to the point where they're like, okay, well, this person's not gonna be a person that I could talk to about smart shit. You know, I can come to them for like information that I might need, but I'll be the one to like give them information they might need about something. Or if I want to like cool down and just like relax from like reading books and other things, and I would just want to have a good time, I'll fuck around with these people. They know how to like do things like that. And again, I said this person also might want to help some people out. So they might want to help the person out who ain't as intelligent as them, or whatever, and help them get, because they want to see that person, their friend or whatever, do better. Because they have that inside them too. Because they also know that if they help that person out, that person will also help them out. And they have that kind of like mutual relationship with people, and that's how they move around. Now, the next person is Cancer, Mars in the third house. Basically, this person's great at supporting the people in their families, their very close people, their loved ones, people they really care for. Um, they can, get lost in, caring about them so much, like the other people so much, and like what they have to say. That like when said loved ones and other people need to be away from them, they could even like take it upon themselves as like they're not doing enough, or they're not, man, they're just like a nuisance to somebody. And it might be the case, it might not be the case. What I'm basically saying is their emotions trigger them to do things, or like slow the fuck down. Because this is a placement, right, that is, you know, not great for Mars to be in, right? Now, I didn't say that this person can't get by, or that they can't do, or they don't do for others. Like I said, they do for others more than they consider others more than they consider themselves. They'll allow like what another person's feeling to dictate what they're feeling. But over time, they become wise to this, and they understand that they're a person that can be like really triggered if they stick around somebody too much. Um, they learn people, and learn how people affect their mood. And then they're like, eventually they get to the point where they're like, okay, well, maybe so and so is like that, but it takes some time too. And they still are hurt by it and everything else. They slow the fuck down and other things. But like, here's the other thing about that. Like when they are working with somebody that they love and care for, um, whether that be their like mother, brother, sister, significant other, whatever. Oh, they're great. Their life's amazing. They love being that supportive role and helping that person out. The person that they put so much time and energy into. You know, and like people know that about them. The people who like live with them, or really like fuck with them, most of the time, know that they could use this person um to like help their situation out, because they know that this person with the Mars and Cancer actually does care and give a fuck about them, moving forward, like even more so than they care about their own self. Um, and then, but sometimes again, when other people don't give back, like the same way they put all their energy and effort into like that person, they don't give that back. Then this person slows down and breaks down and is like, why ain't they, considering what I need and other things? Because some people don't do that. Some people don't give back to them, and then they're like, and it's like a really hard thing for them to deal with, because they've given their time and energy to them in a way that other people, don't. They try to get to know this person on like a deeper level, and then they, these people, um, they feel as though these people like don't give a fuck about them, or don't need them, or all kind of shit. So they like slow down and shit. But like they're basically great like support, is what I like to say. They really support the people that they care about. They'll be there for them. You need money for this, a little extra money for this, that's fine. Every week I'll give you a couple of dollars, or you need me to be there for you when you're, because like they're an athlete or something, or like they're with an athlete or something. I'll be at every game and I'll be cheering you on. All like shit like that. They're always there for that person that they're with. Um, but sometimes they feel as if they get the short end of the stick, which in some cases it ain't, because they might actually get things from other people, and they just don't like it, don't register to them sometimes. But other times it is true that they get the short end of the stick. They just have to learn how to like deal with that and move forward. They got to move kind of like the other water signs a little bit, and don't let that shit get to them so much, because like basically the way your mood plays a lot into how everything plays out for you. So basically, if you're positive about things and you're just like, oh, well, they're just, doing them, and they'll come back and they see me, they know that they need me for whatever, you know, that's a positive energy, right? And you can, they'll come back and everything else, right? But then you start thinking negative, negative things happen. And for this person, it's actually like true, even more so. So you gotta watch out for that. Next person, though, Leo Mars in the third house. Leo Mars in the third house. This person's about taking their actions, not thinking too much. Like they like to, they position themselves in a way that like, they're at the right place at the right time. People see them, know what they are about, and like people, basically don't question it. If they're questioning it, they're just like, I don't know, they just like to see this person get fired up, if you know what I mean. They like to see that person's passionate side, come to life. Um, and because like I do this, I'm a great athlete, or that I'm, a person who can, kick somebody's ass if they, play games with like what I have going on. That I'll, go to fight for you, if somebody, you know, plays games with you, because like they have the people around them that they like, and they're like, that's basically, not cool if you're fucking with them the wrong way, because I, see, use for them. They're important to me. I'll make sure that, you ain't fucking with my friend like that, and they won't think about things too much when it comes to shit like that. Like once you like piss them off, they ain't thinking more, no more. Um, and what this person's about, because like it just, that they come through and you're like, oh, that's so and so. They're the best at, or not the, maybe not the best at, but like they're pretty damn good at doing this, doing that. Um, you know, let's not say some shit that's not true about them, or anything. Or maybe you do want to say that because you want to see that side of them for some reason. You want to see that side of them that's more passionate and hot. You want to see them get loud and and tell you what they're about, because to you, you're like, this person just is gonna shine, and you're gonna know what they're about. Like there's no and they, again, they like to like, when it's time to show out, they show out. This person, you know and people know that about them. Every time you go to a game, let's say they're a football player or a basketball player, oh shit, he's on the court, he's on the football field, he's on this, or she's on that. Oh fuck, this is about to be a show. This person's about to, show out for us. They a race car driver or whatever. They anything they do. Things are about to get serious, and that person is gonna, show up. And they don't like to disappoint. They hardly ever disappoint. And that's how like people see them and shit. This person hardly disappoints. Hardly ever makes a mistake, or is seen in a bad light. You know, mostly, people who are jealous, or sometimes, and sometimes it is, this person can be, pompous or arrogant towards, things, and actually think they're always going to be the best, and, nobody could ever touch them and shit. Um, but, the ones who like understand things, they're just like, okay, well, it's another day. We have to keep, this up. We're that example of what people strive to be. So we have to like make sure we're, on our shit, and we're doing things, and we're doing it with like a passion, and like, people make sure people know that we're about what we do. We're about our business. Basically, they like being seen for what they do. The next person though is Virgo Mars in the third house. Virgo Mars in the third house. This person, they have a way of, being particular about things. They make sure they have a plan thought out in their head. They don't like tell people this shit. Like, they typically don't, because this is Mars, right? This is like their actions that they have to take for themselves. They're gonna plan shit out in their head and then execute it. And this plan is, thought out, pretty, thoroughly and everything else. They'll get on themselves when like things don't go right and shit. Like, damn, I didn't make my um I didn't meet this time. At this time I'm supposed to be at the gym, and then at this time I'm supposed to be, you know, paying bills, or whatever, And they do shit at a specific time, specific way every time. And like anytime they like it's not like that, it's like, damn, I'm losing my edge. They feel that way. Um I need to like make sure this shit never happens again. And they can even adapt and account for people in their lives who ain't as, well, detailed as they are about a plan and shit, right? So, okay, I'll have to, like, kind of like the Gemini and the other wind signs, right? A little bit, you know, but they ain't necessarily looking for other people help, because this is an earth sign, right? They like to like be that one that people can confide in and other things. I do this and I do this a specific way, and that's why I am successful. I do everything to the best of my ability. I don't have to ask shit a lot. I never do, and they basically never do. And they do look for people to criticize them, and um, like, if you think I can improve better, what is it, because I'm pretty sure I'm doing everything to the best of my ability. I've accounted for things in my head. You know, this person might not be seen as the most fun, is what I'm saying. And like, that's why people might, pick on them, or, try to get them to be a little more, not so, hard in their ways and shit, And this person, sometimes, they'll fuck around, but for the most part, they don't like to, because in it's for them, it's like, if it ain't done like this, if I fuck around like one time, and it's like bad, like everything goes to shit, like all the like my routine is like fucked, and I can't, you know, get that back. There's no bouncing back from that, or not. There's no bouncing back from that, because they're a nurse sign. They know they can fix some things, but I have to like redo everything. I have to have a new routine, and I have to like replan and restructure everything. Because that's mutable. So they can adapt to situations and shit, and that's what people love about them too. They can account for all kinds of things, but like, they much rather like, I have this planned out for me. I don't need people getting in my way, fucking me up on my daily routine and daily tasks. I tell you, I have the decency to tell you, as like a friend or whatever, I do this at a specific time. Don't fuck with me on these hours. Fuck with me maybe this time. But even then you have to come, right. I don't know if I want to fuck around like that, you know. um, and that's how this person moves, and people like, might not want to be their friend or know how to approach this person because they're like, damn, they're like so, on point with everything, and they look at themselves and they're like, damn, I'll just continue to fuck around and just know that person to be maybe not the most fun person in the world, you know. Sometimes, that's how people view them, but for them it's like, I gotta be on my shit. Next person is Libra Mars in the third house. Libra Mars in the third house. This person thinks about things before, taking action. And what they'll do is, they'll kind of feel out the situation a little bit, or make people, feel comfortable with them. They will, talk to people in a calm, cool manner, and get their, kind of like, maybe they might say shit like, if you do this for me, they like to cooperate with people, and try to, consider other people before, just doing something, but they can like make plans for like their future to be all right. So what I'm saying is they can, find people, you know, can I work with this person? Even if I can't work with this person, I'm still gonna approach them. I ain't gonna be fucked up. I'll, talk to them in a, calm, cool manner. But if they ain't, whatever, we'll just leave it at that, and find somebody else. And the people that they can work with are the people who, he causes like the same ideas as them, and they're like, if you kind of like, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. I'll even do for you first, and then you make sure you do that for me. We can be all right. They like to cooperate with people, um, when they can, you know and with the like people that they know, he calls the same ideas as them, and won't. And like at first, sometimes like younger ones, right, they might be used by their friends a little bit. They're smart a little bit before they do something. um, they'll put themselves on the back burner for some other people. And that's like not a good thing, right? But like as they grow up, they understand that they're that smart person. They take steps for themselves too. They don't necessarily need to have the spotlight and shit. I'll still get what I want. I don't care about all that shit. I actually want my guy, to do what they do. I'm not telling them to do what I do because I understand that I'm thinking things through a little more, and they don't like to think things through a bit. You know, they'll just get back to me at another time. And it's fine too. This person understands shit like that. People come and go. They also know that the people that they want to have around, they you know want to make sure they're all right. So they might talk to them and be like, hey, is our plan going all right? You told me to come back to you at this date and other things. They make sure they're punctual, and they man, they know what they're talking about when they're doing business with people. um and they ain't gonna do something that they feel is like not right for them. If they feel that it's not gonna be good for them, they'll stay the fuck away from me. um they just won't do it. They don't like to disturb their peace. um and with that, they, for the people that they are working with, they also want to like make sure they're doing all right, and things are going all right for like the people they're working with, and like going through life with. you know they like to consider other people a little bit more than other people. And like sometimes you don't want to do that, but this person still does that though, because that's what they, that's how they move. Now the next person is Scorpio Mars in the third house. This person is a go-getter too, but they ain't loud about it. They are though. It's another one of those times where actions speak louder than words, right? So this person doesn't give a fuck about who they have to like, walk over, step over to get what they want. If their gut's telling them to do something, they're gonna do it. Um, Typically, they want to not, make a scene, cause a scene. But it's if like there's no other way, they don't give a fuck. They'll cause a scene. But they don't typically like to do that. They like to operate in a way that's like, I'm doing things. You just don't know what I'm doing. And I don't have to tell you, you know, you just know that I'm doing something, man. You know that I could like really like mess your life up, right? And you like, and these people are like that. I can, if I have a goal set out for myself, I'm on the grind. And like I might be doing any kind of thing to get what I want. Um, and like not thinking things through too much, like not really caring about other people's feelings and shit about the matter. If I don't like rock with them, or if I'm not friends with them, I don't really give a fuck about how they're feeling. As long as I'm getting what I need out of it, you know. And that's how these people move and shit. Now like when people are looking at these people, they know like something about them. You're like, when they say they're gonna do something though, they're gonna do it. And like it might not even be like pretty how they like get it done, but like they're gonna get the results they want, you know, that type of thing. Because they don't care, about consequences too much. But like for them, it's like they're emotionally driven people too. So like they seek, what they desire. They seek, deeper connections. They seek people who can be with them, rock with what they do, no matter what's going on, bad days or good days. And not everybody will see them like that. They'll just be like, that person probably does some stuff. And you can try to like question, people might question like their, um, like, do you feel bad for just doing shit and not concerning yourself with like how somebody else felt? This person don't not feel anything, because see, it's actually the opposite for this person. They actually feel deeply towards people. um and like they don't like to cause problems for people. But when people don't want to do something that they need, and they feel strongly they need, that's when they will be that like ugly person that you don't want, like your worst fucking nightmare kind of, and they don't like to do that, but they'll do it. They'll beat somebody's ass. They might even kill somebody. And that's the extreme. That's people who go to the extremes and shit, right? But at the end of the day, they might change a little bit, but at the same time, them to be that friend or that person that just like they'll do anything to get what they want. They have some guts, like some real guts too. And like they don't have to be loud about it. It's just something that you either know or you don't know, and it's fine if you don't, because some shit ain't supposed to be known. Now Mars in Sagittarius is in the third house. This person likes to not think too much before doing anything either. um if they want to do something, they're just gonna do it. If they look like a dumbass or a fool, they don't give a fuck. Like they really don't give a fuck. um for them, it's like if I didn't do what I wanted to do, I would regret it. I That's not something I ever want to feel. I'm gonna take those feelings. I'm gonna, move by my gut feeling. I'll take my, I'll listen to my instincts before anything else. And people like that about them. Whereas they might, question things before they do something or second guess themselves. This person won't do that, and they'll just do it. Whatever they, first thing that comes to mind, and it ain't always like smart or whatever, and they make people laugh and all kinds of stuff because it's like, it's something stupid or whatever, right? But they're that person who just like don't think and does. They jump headfirst into it. Um, and like there's courage with that. There's um, I don't like being held back by anybody else. Like anybody else, like even family members, and you've cared for me and everything else, right? But I won't do that. And these people, it ain't that they don't care about other people. They just like won't do it. They won't listen to it like that. So like they'll listen to it, right? They actually do listen to people, by the way. It ain't that they won't listen to people. It's that they won't let other people hold them back from doing what they need to do. Because they actually like listening to people, and and seeing what different things they can try. This person's willing to try all kind of shit, like all kind of things. Um, to do all kind of stuff, but you have to like kind of like sell them on it a little bit. Like if it don't sound fun to them, they won't do anything, or they won't do that. They'll be like, I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to like do something else. Like I want to do snowboarding. I don't want to like run around and like travel the country, or I don't want to, you know, do baseball. That shit's like so last year or whatever. You know, they might have done it already, or they just don't feel like doing it right now. You know, and like they seize opportunities too. They know how to like position themselves and shit. When the right time comes, and they're the right way and everything. They're perceived the right way. And they can get a lot out of life is what I'm basically um this person. The next person is Capricorn Mars in the third house. This person's about business too. Except they don't let their emotions rule them too much, and they don't let like they don't care about being loud. They'll get loud when they have to, but it's like grind, 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 grind. On whatever they want to do. Whatever. Very ambitious people. They have goals that are like big, and one may call grand, but to them it's like if like other people were able to do it, and I know that I'm capable of doing it, I can do it too. They might put a lot on themselves though. They might say, I didn't do this enough. Now let's, refine this skill. They like to, learn all kind of things, and, challenge themselves on all kind of shit, and challenge other people on things. What I mean by that is it helps them, grow as a person. It helps them, uh, like, damn, it just helps them, like, want to be a better person. I'm competing with these people and this and that. you know I'm just always grinding, doing my thing. Like either what I'm doing or you don't, but I'm about my business, and I am about my business. I might decide to help you out one day, out of the not goodness of my heart, but just because I felt like it. Because I felt like you couldn't do that, and you really needed my help, because you're kind of like basically weak, and you needed me to do it for you, so I'll do it, that type of thing, you know. And they're still helpful, right? But they can basically do anything they set their mind to do, and they think things out a little bit. They think in a more real way. My real world actions. I need to make the money so I can put money here, put money there. I gotta go to the gym. I gotta make sure I can like outmove other people, the best I can. They're thinking about all kinds of things that they can do, and they won't wait. They'll take action. They'll help others think a little more practically. You know, that might not be a thing that's feasible. Have you thought of doing this? And they actually know. You know, because they do all kind of things, and like sometimes they don't even think things through. Sometimes they don't. Um, because this is like the exaltation point of Mars. They can plan things out and do that, but they can be just like the Aries and Scorpio, and like not think things through. And like just like we'll fix that as like we need to. Now they typically don't want to like not think things through. They like to have a plan and execute it right away, and like not fuck around either. Like not like play games with like other people too much. Build themselves up. Make sure that they are one that people can come to for, advice on what their next steps. They like to be that person for other people. Now the next person is Mars in Aquarius with, in the third house. This person thinks things through before doing things. You know, they like to, make people um like they like to like talk to people to get by. If you know what I mean. They don't mind being a social animal. And so much so that like sometimes they get lost in talking to people that they forget about the actions that they were trying to accomplish. With like the idea changes, morphs, and sometimes they don't like that. You know, they can be basically a part of a group. They find themselves being a part of a group that like they didn't know that they would be a part of. They kind of move like that. They're free moving, free winded, free thinking, kind of people, right? So they're open to different ideas. At some point though, they have their own, idea about what they want to do, and then from there, basically, they like know that they can talk to. They have the ability to talk to people. They can, get their point across in a way to the right people. They can, build, a life that they want to build. Um, live the life they want to live. They can, come across as very friendly people. People who like to, give people information, talk to people. They don't like to not communicate to people. Is what I'm saying. Even if you like think they, don't like to talk to. Maybe they don't like to talk to certain people, but they definitely like to talk and socialize. These people do, and like plan things. Before they take action, they ain't gonna not think about things. How their actions will affect the world, or affect people. They do think about things before doing it. The most ideal plan is the best plan for this person. But the next person is Pisces. Mars in the third house. Pisces, Mars in the third house. This person will not always think things through, but the way they do things and how they do it, it's like it still works out. You know, they're able to make people see it from like their perspective. You know, I need these things. If I do this for you, you'll feel better. You will, see me as a guy that's actually, not that bad of a guy, or girl that's not, that bad of a girl. You know, they can turn something that is, negative into a positive, disguise shit. They're good at like doing shit like that. And they could also bring things to life. They could. What I'm saying is they can show you that there's also other opportunities, but they basically seize it for themselves though. First of all, because this is Mars, right? So they'll seize opportunities that other people don't see. Now they ain't like the Sagittarius. They kind of can sit back a little bit. They don't have to be loud or, get people's attention that way. They know how to subtly get people's attention and open doors for themselves. Because this is the introverted part. It's still intense energy, right? They're about what they want. And they know that they can get it all kind of ways. But again, they don't always think things through. They always don't. They don't need to. They go by their gut feeling. Um, they can also be a great supportive role to other people, kind of like the Cancer. You know, I can spend some time with you, get to know you, um, help you out with whatever you need because I care. But then they might get tired of that and want to do other things because again they seize opportunities when they see them, and if they feel they need to do that, they won't be upset. They'll do it. They'll find other things and do what they gotta do. If they feel like they're not getting anything out of it, they ain't gonna stick around. They like to get things out of situations. Seize the opportunity, take everything they can get, and then leave. But they do it in a way that's like cool, or not cool, but they leave on good terms. Me as that person who as you and shit, and you like the way I make you feel when I do things. Like it's like the way I do things is just damn amazing. We need this person. They help other people feel better. They help other people. You know, feel like they can accomplish, stay positive on what they gotta do. And still they can still do what they gotta do at the same time. Um, this person, they use their Mars energy, as they need to, and they're pretty good at using it. They don't need to think about things too much, just a matter of doing. Now, this is over. I have the next one. This is gonna be the next one's gonna be Jupiter in the third house, and then Saturn in the third house, and then I'll be on the fourth house. This was Mars in the third house. So be cool, calm the corner, and I still have those other things, those other videos coming out later too.